Yeah. Okay. For pollinating certain crops such as cranberries, blueberry, blueberries. Hang on, let me start over. For pollinating certain crops such as cranberries, bumblebees are far more efficient than honeybees. This is because a bumblebee tends to visit only a few plant species in a limited area, whereas a honeybee generally flies over a much broader area and visits a wider variety of species.
Okay, cool. So we're saying that bumblebees are more efficient than honeybees when it comes to pollinating certain crops. Bumblebees stay close and are very limited, where honeybees are much more broad. All right, go ahead and start with A.
If a honeybee visits a wider variety of plant species than a bumblebee visits, the honeybee will be less efficient than the bumblebee at pollinating any one of those species.
All right, what do you think about that one?
I did not like that one because of the any one of those species
Yeah,
part.
same. We don't know if it's, yes, we don't know if they are the same. So this is too strong of an answer choice. Excellent. All right, what about B?
The number of plant species other than cranberries that a bee visits affects the efficiency with which the bee pollinates cranberries. And I liked that one.
Okay, why?
Because like if the bee visits like all of these other plants, then they can't go to like the cranberries as quickly.
Yeah, and our
I
stimulus.
was like, I was envisioning it in my head.
Okay,
So
so our bumblebees visit only a few species of plants, and the honeybees, let me get a different color. The honeybees visit a wider variety of species. And so this one was actually pretty direct. For this was an easier, I felt, most strongly supported correct answer, but I thought there were some tricky wrong answers here.
Mhm.
All right, Kamani, do you want to read C?
Yes. The broader an area a bee flies over, the smaller number of plant species the bee will be able to visit. I'm not gonna lie, I like this answer, but I see why bees are right because of the plant species, but it like makes sense to me.
So is it true that the number of plant species will be smaller? Because we're actually,
Oh, the number. I see what it's saying. Okay, okay.
yeah, so we're not saying like it's because, and we're not even saying that the bumblebee visits more. We're not saying the bumblebee visits more plants. We're just saying the bumblebee is more efficient when it comes to cranberries. So the honey, like the honeybee almost visits more, and that's what makes them less efficient.
The broader an area.
Was that what B's saying? Because I'm still like mulling over B.
Yeah, so let's go back to B. So B is saying that the number of plant species
Right.
other than cranberries, which I
Like
think people get,
blueberries, strawberries.
yeah, I think people get thrown off here because of the other than cranberries, and we're like, oh, we're just talking about cranberries. But
Mm-hmm.
really, other than cranberries doesn't matter here because our stimulus tells us that bumblebees visit only a few species and honeybees visit a wide variety of species. So we know that honeybees visit more than bumblebees.
Mm-hmm.
And so what B is saying is the number of bee species that a bee visits affects the efficiency of them pollinating cranberries.
Got it.
Um,
Yeah, wow, that does seem very kind of obvious.
I
It
think it's
almost
that
seems like
other
it
than
restates it.
cranberries that throws people off.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm still having trouble. Can you like do an example, like the number of species? So like blueberries, grapes.
Yeah, so like cranberries, blueberries, grapes. So bumblebees tend to visit only a few plant species. So let's say that they only visit 3.
Okay.
And
Okay.
honeybees visits a wider variety of species. So maybe they visit 5.
Gotcha.
And so this is saying that the number of plant species that a bee visits impacts how good they are at pollinating cranberries. And we know that
Gotcha.
because
Okay.
the bumblebees are far more efficient than honeybees, and bumblebees only visit fewer species.
Okay. 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 Now it makes sense.
Nicole, like for this question, like what kind of like threw me off, like why are we focusing on just cranberry? Because isn't that just an example? Like that's just
Yeah, such as cranberries. Yes.
I don't
And
know, it's
so
like I kind of like just like look through that. I'm like, okay, just an example, whatever. Like, but we're in general talking about like uh pollinating crops such as like just pollinating crops in general.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, and cranberries is just one of those.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
I
this
don't
could also say with the but um I guess the reason that they couldn't say the bee, I guess they could put the bee pollinates certain crops. Yeah, because it does impact it to some level, but we know for certain that one of the crops that the bumblebee is better at than the honeybee is cranberries.
I think that's where I was getting confused. I was like, cranberries are just an example. So
And then every
Kind of
answer
like
had cranberries in it. And I'm like, what's up with the cranberries?
That's literally what threw me off. That's why, like, I don't know, like, I just looked at B and I'm like, okay, first of all, it's saying cranberries, and second of all, it's saying other than cranberries. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's B or not. I think I chose C at the end, but
Yeah, and I think that's like, it's like a very specific thing, but it is encompassed in the overarching topic. And
Mhm.
even people get thrown off by D. Cranberries are typically found concentrated in limited areas that bumblebees are more likely than honeybees to visit. Why is this one wrong? Do you know, Kamani?
I guess we can't assume that they're more concentrated and they're more likely.
Yeah,
Just saying the number.
honeybees are like little flirts with all the pollinating all the crops, right? They're not saying that bumblebees are more likely to visit certain plants. It's just bumblebees are probably going to stay there longer because like the honeybees just like go all over quickly, but they could still go to the same number of crops in that area. All right, cool. And then D says the greater the likelihood of a given bee species visiting one or more plants in a given cranberry crop, the more efficient that the bee species will be at pollinating that crop. We don't know how many like given bee species visits one or more plants in a given, like we're once again talking about cranberry crops, and we don't know how, do bumblebees visit more than one or do honeybees visit more than one? We have no idea.
Nicole,
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on this while I was doing it time, but like when I was reviewing it for B, like I saw, it says which the bees, like it just says bees in general. So like, how can we just assume bees in general, while like when we're only given like bumblebees and like honeybees? But if there's like a bunch of other bees, I don't know.
We're a plant species. Because it's at least happening at least once. So we like it's at least happening in this situation. So maybe it doesn't always, but in this situation, like the number of plant species that a bee visit like can affect it because we have proof of that.
Mhm.
But I get what you're saying there. That it's like, well, how do we know about all bees?
Yeah, because we're only given information about like the honeybee and bumblebee, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on this one?